Even his 200 yards of shoes were locked up. But this is not difficult to defeat him. He got up with full body force, and the wooden stake on the ground pulled up. The surrounding villain was also thrown far away. Gulliver stood up and thought he was dreaming. Not waiting for him to get ready, the villain's commander Edward rode over and put the 5 centimeters long javelin into Gulliver's shoe. Gulliver wailed in pain. Then the others threw a bunch of hooks hooked Gulliver's buttocks. My goodness, they throw the hooks well. The little guys worked together to make Gulliver fall to the ground and pass out. When he opened his eyes again, he was tied up in the car. When the cart entered the city, all the onlookers came together. Gulliver also enjoyed a star treatment. To the palace door, with the general gave an order, they put Gulliver up. The king and the princess saw such a strange creature for the first time and thought he was a spy sent from a neighboring country. The next day, Gulliver was taken outside the city to do hard labor. He used his 800-pound body to pull a dancing carts to plow the ground. He's so efficient, but at that moment, the enemy sent an army to attack. The city was in chaos.
Fire! Fire is 2 bells, that was 3! It's an attack!
Seeing that the city was being attacked, Edward hurriedly operated Gulliver to turn around and queue back towards the palace. Gulliver also opened their own storm mode. Not a few minutes to arrive, but then Edward ordered Gulliver to get down and jumped in with a backflip. Edward, as the fiancé of the princess, naturally wanted a heroic rescue, but his men also know Edward's strength is not at all. They still let Gulliver out to meet the enemy. As expected, at the critical moment, when the princess was surrounded by the group, Gulliver threw the 2 bad guys into the river with a small pinch of his hand and picked up the princess in time. When Edward arrived in full armor, the enemy were solved. Before they could breathe a sigh of relief, the alarm sounded again. It turned out that the other end of the palace was on fire, and the king was trapped inside. Everyone pinned their hopes on Gulliver again. He came up with a brilliant idea. The man took off his shorts and peed on the burning palace. This urine in the waterfall and soon put out the fire in the villainous country. But Edward, the commander-in-chief, was not happy because he was robbed of the credit. Edward rushed toward Gulliver. Seeing that he was coming, Gulliver had to give him the rest of the fountain together. Although the scene was very embarrassing, but the king did not blame him for this. In the evening, the king prepared a feast for Gulliver to celebrate his success. Gulliver grabbed a dragon fruit and fed it into his mouth. Everyone gathered around Gulliver to listen to his bragging. Gulliver is not shy. The supreme president, superhero and other terms open mouth, almost said he saved the earth. These people of the villainous country admire him to the core. The next day, the king sent a few thousand skilled craftsmen to help Gulliver build a luxury villa. Now Gulliver is living an extravagant life, thinking back to how he was treated in the human world before. It is a little hard to believe that this is true. In the evening, Gulliver came to the private cinema exclusive location to watch a live movie. This beautiful life is simply joyful. The king also removed Edward from his post and let Gulliver replace him as the commander-in-chief. This put Edward angry. He sneaked to the control room to close the defense organs. This was seen by the enemy 800 miles away, and they immediately felt the opportunity to take advantage of it and sent a large army to prepare for the attack. Hundreds of artillery shells immediately came from the sky and bombarded the palace. Our great general was still leading at this time. He was shocked to receive the report from his men. Gulliver strutted over and took a look at the enemy army, feeling that the other side was too weak. He volunteered to go and clean them up. Gulliver took off his short sleeves, stumped his shoes to the side, and swam towards the enemy. But Gulliver did not rush to attack, but tried to persuade them with words. He proposed that both sides pretend to fight, and then each collect their troops and go home, then to jump into the water and roll up. But the enemy troops on the opposite side would not listen to him. They fired hundreds of shells at Gulliver, but the shells all hit his big belly. Gulliver, this belly fat is not for nothing, directly bounced back the shells. The group of dwarfs beat the water. The enemy soldiers all fell into the river. Gulliver took the opportunity to make a big splash, grabbed the rope with both hands, and dragged the fleet back. He made a great achievement again. The king and the princess also became his biggest fans. The whole country regarded him as an idol, and there were posters of Gulliver everywhere, and his clothes were sold in the streets. Gulliver's small life became more and more comfortable, and he needed a company of soldiers for a massage and his own hairdresser. But this also makes Edward more jealous. He lost his senses and defected to the enemy, scheming to defeat Gulliver. He then drove an egg-shaped robot to Gulliver and tried to fight him one-on-one. Gulliver was not impressed, but the next second... Oh my god, is this an armored warrior? It is much taller than Gulliver. Everyone was sweating for Gulliver. Gulliver also felt the pressure for the first time. He turned and ran, but he still couldn't escape from the other side's palm. Gulliver was just hung up. Not only that, he begged for mercy straight away. This disappointed the king to the core. So they tied Gulliver up and sent him to the Forbidden Land. Here is another island. Before Gulliver could react, a cup fell from the sky. Gulliver woke up again with a dumbfounded face. He saw himself in the mirror wearing a princess dress. This is the land of giants. He was treated as someone's plaything. Gulliver was just about to speak when a pacifier was stuck in his mouth. He almost choked to death. Gulliver had a bitterness in his heart. He would be taught by the children whenever he disobeyed. Just as he was about to resign himself to his fate, the villain's man arrived in a hurry. He told Gulliver that a woman like him was also washed up in Lilliput. As soon as Gulliver heard it, he understood that the person was his flame Darcy. In order to rescue Darcy, Gulliver risked escaping to return to Lilliput again. This time, because Darcy was watching the battle, Gulliver became brave and fighting spirit, first rushed over and made all the efforts. Everyone rushed to watch the battle, but Edward played a trick. He released electricity to make Gulliver lose resistance. When Gulliver was losing, his men jumped on the robot on their horses and unplugged it at the critical moment. Gulliver also took advantage of the opportunity to pounce, using a small hammer to smash the robot. In the end, he was victorious.